The ships came without warning. Part GA was eating breakfast in the pilot's mess hall when the alarm started screaming. She dropped her chopsticks and ran. By the time she reached the runway, the sky had already changed. Where there had been clouds and morning sun, there were now shapes. Hundreds of them. Dark triangles that blocked the light and made the air feel heavy. She had trained for war her entire adult life. She had imagined enemy jets, missiles, maybe even a conflict with a neighboring country. She had never imagined this. All pilots scramble. This is not a drill. The voice on the loudspeaker was shaking. GA climbed into her F-15K. Her hands moved automatically, flipping switches, checking systems. Her mind was somewhere else. It was looking at those ships in the sky and trying to understand what she was seeing. They were too big, too many, too impossible. She was airborne in 3 minutes. Around her, 12 other jets rose into the gray morning. They formed up and climbed toward the alien fleet. The battle lasted less than 4 minutes. GA watched her squadron leader explode. One moment he was there, his voice calm on the radio, giving orders. The next moment, a beam of green light touched his aircraft and he became fire and falling metal. Then another pilot died. Then another. GA fired her missiles. She saw them streak toward an alien craft and then simply stop in midair, as if they had hit an invisible wall. They fell uselessly toward the ocean below. Something hit her plane. Not directly, but close enough. Her cockpit filled with smoke and warnings. She was spinning, falling, the ocean rushing up to meet her. She pulled the ejection handle. The cold water of the Yellow Sea swallowed her. She floated there, hanging from her parachute harness, watching the sky burn. Seoul was 40 kilometers to the east. She could see the flashes of light even from here. The aliens were attacking the city. Her home. A fishing boat found her 2 hours later. The old man who pulled her from the water did not ask questions. He just wrapped her in a blanket and pointed toward the shore. There were fires everywhere. What do we do now? The old man asked. GA did not have an answer. On the other side of the country, near the border that had divided Korea for 70 years, Lieutenant Colonel Kim Do-yeon stood on a hilltop and watched the alien ships descend. His soldiers were arranged behind him, 200 men and women who had trained to fight a very different enemy. They had guns and tanks and artillery. They had courage and discipline. None of it seemed to matter now. "Sir," his radio operator said, "Seoul Command is offline. Bisan Command is offline. We're getting fragments from the Americans, but their satellites are going dark too." Do-yeon nodded slowly. He had expected this. When the enemy controls the sky, they control the information. It was the first rule of modern warfare. Blind your opponent. Make them deaf and confused. But humans had fought in the dark before. They had fought with sticks and stones, with swords and arrows, with whatever they could find. They had never stopped fighting. "Tell the men to dig in," Do-yeon said. "Spread out. Small groups. Stay hidden. When the enemy lands, we watch. We learn. We wait for our moment." "What moment, sir?" Do-yeon looked at the young soldier. She was maybe 22 years old. She had probably joined the army to pay for university. Now she was standing at the end of the world. "The moment when they make a mistake," he said. "Every enemy makes mistakes. We just have to be ready." In Daejeon, Dr. Yoon Hana was running through the halls of her laboratory when her phone rang. She ignored it. She had more important things to do. The power was flickering. Half her equipment was already offline. She needed to save her research data before everything crashed. Her phone rang again. And again. Finally, she answered. "What?" "Dr. Yoon, this is the Ministry of Defense. We need you in Seoul immediately." She laughed. It was not a happy sound. Have you looked outside? Seoul is on fire. We know. We need your work on directed energy systems. The theoretical framework you published last year. Hannah stopped walking. Her heart was beating very fast now. That paper was theoretical. I said it would take 10 years to build a working prototype. You have 6 hours. The line went dead. Hannah stood there for a long moment. Then, she started running again, but in a different direction. Toward her lab. Toward the impossible. Across the world, the pattern repeated. Cities burned. Armies scrambled. People died. But something else was happening too. Something the aliens did not expect. In Bizen, a retired Marine named Beek Sunho gathered his neighbors in the basement of an apartment building. He was 67 years old. His knees hurt when it rained. He had not held a rifle in 15 years. None of that mattered now. Listen to me, he said to the frightened faces around him. The army will fight. The government will organize. But we cannot wait for them. We are the first line of defense. Our families, our homes, our streets. We defend them ourselves. His granddaughter Yoonji pushed through the crowd. She was 19, a university student studying communications engineering. In her hands, she held 3 ham radios and a laptop. The cell towers are down, she said, but I can set up a mesh network. Short-range communication. We can coordinate with other neighborhoods. Sunho looked at her with pride. Do it. Within an hour, Bizen's civilian resistance had a working communication system. It was crude. It was improvised. But it worked. The aliens had expected panic. They had expected humans to run, to hide, to surrender. That was what every other species had done. 23 civilizations had fallen to the Velith Dominion, and all of them had collapsed within days. But humans were different. In those first terrible hours, as the fire spread and the death toll climbed, humanity did not collapse. It bent. It bled. It screamed in pain and rage. But it did not break. And somewhere in the back of the human mind, in that ancient part of the brain that remembered ice ages and predators and 10,000 years of brutal survival, something was waking up. Something that the aliens would soon learn to fear. The invasion had begun. The humans were just getting started. Commander Tarek Vel stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched the blue planet below. It was a beautiful world, rich in water and minerals, perfect for colonization. In a few days, it would belong to the Velith Dominion. He had done this 23 times before. The pattern was always the same. First, overwhelming force. Destroy the military centers. Burn the capital cities. Show the native population that resistance was impossible. Then came the collapse. The primitives would turn on each other, fighting for food and safety. Their leaders would beg for terms. Within a week, maybe 2, the planet would be pacified. His tactical officer approached with a data tablet. Commander, the ground assault is proceeding as planned. We have established forward bases on every major continent. Casualties? Minimal. The native air forces were destroyed in the first hour. Their ground vehicles are primitive. Their weapons cannot penetrate our shields. Tarek Vel nodded. Everything was going according to the model. And yet, something felt wrong. He did not explain it. A feeling in his chest, like a small cold stone. What about civilian behavior? He asked. Are they fleeing? Fighting each other? The tactical officer hesitated. There are some unusual readings, Commander. Explain. The natives are evacuating their cities, as expected. But they are doing it in an organized manner. They are helping each other. Our psychological warfare division predicted mass panic and social breakdown within 3 hours. We are now at hour 2, and we are seeing The opposite. Tarek Vel frowned. Show me. The main screen shifted to show aerial footage from different cities around the planet. In one, a long line of ground vehicles moved slowly but steadily away from the destruction. Humans were directing traffic, waving other humans forward. In another, boats were carrying people across a wide river while bridges burned behind them. In a third, humans were forming chains to pass supplies from one building to another. This is unusual, Tarek Vel admitted. But it changes nothing. They are still running. They will tire. They will lose hope. He turned back to the window. The cold stone in his chest remained. On the ground, Captain Park Ga had found her way to a temporary military command post. It was set up in a high school gymnasium, far from the burning cities. Maps covered the walls. Officers shouted into radios. Wounded soldiers lay on cots in the corner. Ga was still wearing her flight suit. She had not slept. She had not eaten since that interrupted breakfast, a lifetime ago. A young officer approached her. Captain Park? You're being reassigned. Joint Task Force. Follow me. She followed him through the chaos to a small classroom that had been converted into a laboratory. Inside, she found a woman about her age surrounded by electronic equipment. The woman had dark circles under her eyes and coffee stains on her lab coat. Dr. Yoon Hana, the woman said, not looking up from her work. You're the pilot who survived the first engagement? Yes. Good. I need someone who has seen their weapons up close. Tell me everything. Ga described the battle. The green beams. The invisible shields. The way her missiles had simply stopped in midair. Hannah listened, nodding occasionally, typing notes into a laptop. A force field, Hannah said finally. Some kind of energy barrier. It blocks physical projectiles completely. Can you break it? Hannah smiled, but there was no happiness in it. Everything can be broken, Captain. The question is whether we have time to figure out how. She pointed to a piece of alien equipment on the table. It was the size of a microwave oven, covered in strange symbols. Our ground forces captured this from a crashed scout ship. It's a power converter. I've been studying its electromagnetic signature, and I think I found something. A frequency gap. A weakness in the shield harmonics. If we can generate a pulse at exactly the right frequency, we might be able to disrupt their protection systems. Ga stared at the alien device. How long do you need? The ministry gave me 6 hours. I've used 2. I need 4 more. Maybe 3 if I don't sleep. What can I do? Hannah handed her a stack of papers. Read these. Learn the theory. You're my backup. If something happens to me, someone needs to finish this work. Ga took the papers. She did not understand most of the equations, but she would learn. She had no choice. In Bizin, Sergeant Beek San-ho and his granddaughter, Yoonji, had expanded their network. What had started as one apartment building had grown to cover half the city. Ham radios, walkie-talkies, even children running messages between checkpoints. It was primitive, but it worked. More importantly, people were fighting back. A Velith patrol had entered the Hounday district an hour ago. 20 alien soldiers in black armor, carrying weapons that could cut through concrete. They expected no resistance. They found an ambush. Molotov cocktails rained from apartment windows. Fishing nets tangled their legs. And when they were confused and burning, men and women with hunting rifles and kitchen knives charged out of the shadows. The aliens killed 12 humans in 30 seconds. But they lost 4 of their own. And for the first time, humans had proven that the invaders could die. Sunho stood over one of the alien bodies, looking down at the creature inside the cracked armor. It had gray skin and 2 many eyes. It did not look so frightening now. Grandfather, Yoonji said, running up to him. I'm getting reports from other cities. The resistance is spreading. People are copying our tactics. They're sharing information. Sunho nodded slowly. That's what humans do, child. We learn. We adapt. We teach each other. He looked up at the sky, where alien ships still circled like hungry birds. They think they know what war is. They have no idea. Around the world, the same scene was repeating. Small victories. Costly victories. But victories nonetheless. In the mountains of Switzerland, a group of engineers was studying captured alien technology. In the deserts of Nevada, American scientists were testing improvised weapons. In the forests of Siberia, Russian special forces were learning alien patrol patterns, and something else was happening. Something unprecedented in human history. Enemies were becoming allies. Nations that had threatened each other for decades were now sharing intelligence, combining forces, fighting side by side. Chinese and American soldiers defended the same positions. Russian and European scientists worked in the same laboratories. Old hatreds were not forgotten, but they were put aside, because humanity had finally found an enemy that was not human. And that changed everything. Commander Tarek Val received his fourth report of the day. His expression did not change, but the cold stone in his chest grew heavier. They are coordinating, his intelligence officer said. Globally, we have intercepted their communications. They are sharing tactical information in real time. How is that possible? We destroyed their satellite networks. They are using primitive systems, radio waves, physical messengers. It is inefficient, but effective. Tarek Val was silent for a long moment. And our casualties? Increasing. Still acceptable, but increasing. The commander turned back to the window. The blue planet looked the same. But something had changed. He could feel it. Send a message to the High Council, he said finally. Tell them the subjugation is proceeding, but we may need additional time. The natives are more organized than expected. He did not mention the fear that was growing in his hearts. He did not mention that for the first time in his long career of conquest, he was not certain of victory. Hour 3. The world was still burning, but something had shifted. Lieutenant Colonel Kim Daeun stood at the edge of a rice field, looking at the alien base through his binoculars. It was a temporary structure, set up just 2 hours ago, but already it looked permanent. Black metal walls, strange machines humming with energy, alien soldiers moving in precise patterns. His radio crackled. Colonel, this is command. We have confirmation from the Americans. The shield frequency data is correct. Dr. Yoon's analysis was right. Understood. What about the modified weapons? Being distributed now. EMP grenades. Modified artillery shells. It's not much, but it should disrupt their shields for approximately 3 seconds. 3 seconds. Daeun closed his eyes and did the math. 3 seconds was enough time to fire 1 shot. Maybe 2. It was not much, but it was more than they had an hour ago. Tell command we're moving in 30 minutes, he said, and tell them to pray. He gathered his officers around a map spread on the hood of a jeep. 200 soldiers. Mixed units from 3 different countries. South Korean Special Forces. American Marines. Japanese Ground Defense. They had never trained together. They had been rivals, sometimes enemies, just days ago. None of that mattered now. The objective is simple, Daeun said. We hit their base hard. We cause confusion. And we capture one of their officers alive. A young American lieutenant raised his hand. Sir, why do we need a prisoner? We already know they can die. Because we need information. Their weapons. Their tactics. Their psychology. We need to understand how they think if we want to beat them. The American nodded slowly. Around him, Soldiers from 3 nations checked their weapons and said quiet prayers in 3 different languages. The attack began at hour 3, 22 minutes. Dayun had positioned his forces in a semicircle around the base. When the signal came, they opened fire from all directions. Not with bullets, not at first. With the modified grenades that Dr. Yoon had designed in her improvised laboratory. The EMPA pulses hit the alien shields like invisible hammers. For 3 seconds, the barriers flickered and faded. In those 3 seconds, human rifles spoke. Alien soldiers fell. Not many, but enough. The Velith responded with devastating force. Their weapons cut through the rice fields, turning soil into glass, turning soldiers into ash. Doyen watched 30 of his people die in the first minute. But the humans did not run. They advanced. It was not logical. It was not tactical. It was something older than tactics. Something that lived in the human heart and screamed defiance even when the mind knew that survival was impossible. Doyen led the charge himself. He was 45 years old, too old for this kind of fighting. His lungs burned. His legs ached. But he ran forward anyway, firing as he went, screaming words he would not remember later. They reached the base walls. Close combat now. The aliens were bigger, stronger, better armed. But humans had been fighting hand-to-hand for 100,000 years. They knew tricks that no other species had ever learned. A Japanese sergeant tackled an alien officer. An American Marine pinned another with a combat knife. A Korean private threw himself onto an alien grenade, saving 3 of his friends with his body. When it was over, Doyen stood in the center of the ruined base, breathing hard. Around him, fewer than 100 soldiers remained standing. The rest were dead or dying. But they had won, and they had their prisoner. The alien officer was taken to a secure location, a bunker deep in the mountains. Dayung was there, along with representatives from a dozen other nations. They watched through reinforced glass as a man walked into the interrogation room. His name was Sha Minho. He worked for an intelligence agency that officially did not exist. He was small and thin and wore glasses that made him look like a librarian. He sat down across from the alien and smiled. The interrogation lasted 4 hours. Minho did not use violence. He did not make threats. He simply talked, asked questions, listened to the answers, found the contradictions, pressed harder. By the end, the alien was telling him everything. They have never lost, Minho reported to the assembled commanders. 23 species conquered. All of them surrendered within days. Their entire military doctrine is based on psychological warfare. They expect their enemies to lose hope. And when they don't? Doyen asked. Minho adjusted his glasses. They have no backup plan. Their shields are their main defense. Their communication encryption is basic because no species has ever tried to hack them. They are arrogant, Commander. And arrogance is a weakness we can exploit. On the other side of the world, human hackers were already proving him right. A team of programmers in Estonia had cracked the Velith communication codes. It had taken them less than 2 hours. The aliens had never bothered with strong encryption because they had never faced an enemy capable of digital warfare. Now, humanity could hear everything. Fleet positions, troop movements, supply schedules. The invaders were no longer invisible. In her laboratory, Dr. Yoon Hana was working on something bigger. The frequency disruptor had been a success, but it was just a temporary measure. 3 seconds of shield weakness was not enough to win a war. She needed something stronger, something that could bring down an entire ship. Captain Park Ji-ae sat beside her, reading technical documents, fetching coffee, asking questions. She understood maybe half of what Hana was building, but she was learning fast. The problem Hannah explained, is power. I know the frequency. I can build the pulse generator. But to affect the ship shields, I need more energy than we can produce. How much more? About 100 times more. There's nothing on Earth that can generate that kind of pulse. GA was quiet for a moment. Then she said, what about on their ships? Hannah looked up. What do you mean? The power converter we captured. You said it produces massive amounts of energy. What if we use their own power against them? Hannah stared at her. Then she started laughing. It was the first real laugh anyone had heard from her since the invasion began. Captain Park, she said, you might have just won us this war. She started working faster, her hands flying over the keyboard. GA watched, not fully understanding, but feeling something she had not felt since that morning when the sky had, filled with ships. Hope. 6 hours had not yet passed. The aliens still controlled the skies. Cities still burned. Millions had died. But humanity was no longer just surviving. It was preparing to strike back. Hour 5. The device was ready. Dr. Yoon Hannah held it in her hands. It was small, about the size of a lunchbox. Inside were components from 3 different countries, built in laboratories that had been enemies a week ago. It contained human engineering and alien power technology, married together in a way that should have been impossible. If this works, she said, it will create a cascading amp effect. The pulse will spread through the ship's electrical systems. Everything will shut down. Weapons, shields, life support. Everything. Captain Park Ji-hye looked at the device. And if it doesn't work, then you will be inside an alien warship with a broken gadget and no way out. Ji-hye nodded. She had already accepted this possibility. Somewhere in the last 5 hours, she had stopped being afraid of death. She had seen too much death to fear it anymore. How do I activate it? This switch here. You'll have about 30 seconds to get clear before the pulse begins. The ship will crash. If you're still inside. Hannah did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. The mission briefing was short. GA would fly an old F-15K, one of the few aircraft still functioning. She would approach the alien cruiser at low altitude, using the chaos of battle as cover. 3 other pilots would escort her. They would draw enemy fire, buy her time. Nobody said what everyone knew. The escort pilots would probably die. GA might die too. This was not a mission with a high survival rate, but it was the best chance they had. The pilots gathered on a cracked runway, lit by fires in the distance. GA looked at the faces around her. An American woman with short gray hair. A Russian man with a scar across his cheek. A young Korean pilot, barely 20 years old, who reminded GA of her younger brother. They had met 3 hours ago. They had never flown together. But when they looked at each other, there was an understanding that needed no words. I'll take point, the American said. Her name was Davis. Draw their attention. Give you a clear path. I'll cover the left flank, the Russian said. His name was Petrov. They tend to attack from that side. The young Korean pilot just nodded. His name was Shin Taemin. He was too scared to speak, but he was there anyway. GA wanted to say something. Something inspiring. Something that would matter. But there were no words big enough for this moment. Let's fly, she said simply. The 4 aircraft rose into the smoke-filled sky. Below them, the ground was a patchwork of fire and darkness. Above them, alien ships moved like shadows against the stars. Davis led them through a maze of destruction. She knew the patterns now. Where the alien weapons focused. Where the gaps in their coverage were. She had learned these things in 5 hours of desperate fighting. The cruiser loomed ahead. It was massive, bigger than anything humans had ever built. Its surface was covered in strange patterns that might have been writing or might have been decoration. GA did not care. She only cared about getting inside. Contact left? Petrov shouted. Alien fighters dropped from the cruiser like angry insects. Their weapons flashed green against the night. Davis rolled her aircraft and dove toward them. Go. I'll hold them. She did not last long. 30 seconds, maybe less. But it was enough. She took 2 alien fighters with her before the green light ended her life. Petrov went next. He flew directly into a group of enemies, firing everything he had. His aircraft became a fireball, but the explosion caught 3 alien ships in its blast dot. Now it was just GA and Teeman. The young pilot was shaking. She could hear his breathing over the radio, fast and frightened. Teeman, she said, I need you to do one more thing. I know, he whispered. I know. He turned his aircraft toward the cruiser's weapons array and accelerated. The alien guns tracked him, focused on him, fired at him. They did not see GA slip through the gap. She heard the explosion behind her. She did not look back. She could not afford to look back. The cruiser's landing bay was open, arrogant. They did not expect a single human aircraft to get this close. GA flew inside. The bay was huge, filled with alien shuttles and equipment. Alien soldiers turned to stare at her aircraft in confusion. They had never seen an enemy inside their ship before. GA did not give them time to react. She ejected from her cockpit, the device clutched to her chest. She hit the deck rolling, came up running. Alien weapons fired. Beams of green light cut through the air around her. Something hit her leg. She felt pain but kept moving. The door to the interior was ahead. She had memorized the ship's layout from captured data. Corridors twisted and turned. Aliens shouted in their strange language. Alarms blared. GA ran through it all, bleeding, gasping, refusing to stop. The engine room. She could feel the vibration of power through the walls. This was the heart of the ship. She placed the device on the main power conduit. Flipped the switch. 30 seconds. An alien soldier appeared in the doorway. His weapon rose. GA drew her pistol and fired. The bullet bounced off his armor. She fired again. Again. The alien stumbled but did not fall. 20 seconds. She threw herself at him. Not to win, just to slow him down. They crashed to the floor together. His hands closed around her throat. She could not breathe. Her vision was going dark. 10 seconds. The alien's grip loosened. He looked up at the device on the conduit. For the first time, GA saw fear in those 2 May eyes. 5 seconds. She smiled. The pulse hit like a silent earthquake. Every light went out. Every machine went silent. The ship began to fall. GA could not move. Her leg was broken. Her ribs were cracked. She lay on the floor of an alien warship as it dropped from the sky. She thought about her family. Her mother, who had always worried about her dangerous job. A brother who had wanted to be a pilot too. She wondered if they were still alive. The ship hit the ocean. Water rushed in. Cold, dark, final. But somehow, impossibly, GA did not die. The impact threw her through a gap in the hull. She surfaced in the burning wreckage, gasping for air. A rescue helicopter found her 2 hours later. The cruiser was gone. The first major Velith warship to fall. And across the world, humanity watched the footage and felt something change in their hearts. They could win. They were going to win, and they were just getting started. Hour 6. The world's leaders gathered on screens. They were in bunkers, in submarines, in hidden facilities deep underground. Some of them had been enemies for decades. Some had threatened nuclear war against each other. None of that mattered now. The American president spoke first. Dr. Yoon's device works. We've confirmed the cruiser kill. but we don't have time to build more of them. The alien fleet is preparing a second wave. If we don't act now, we lose everything." The Russian premier's face was stone. "You are proposing what I think you are proposing?" "Yes." A long silence filled the connection. Every leader knew what this meant. They had spent 70 years building weapons that could end human civilization. Now they were going to use them, but not against each other. "The targeting data is ready," the Chinese chairman said. "Low orbit. Maximum effect against their fleet. Minimal fallout for our own populations." "Minimal," someone muttered. "Millions will still die from the radiation." "Billions will die if we don't," the American replied. "This is not a choice between good and bad. This is a choice between bad and extinction." The vote was unanimous. At 6 hours and 14 minutes after first contact, 3 nuclear missiles rose from hidden silos on 3 continents. They climbed through the smoke-filled atmosphere, past the wreckage of human aircraft, past the debris of alien ships, into the cold silence of space. Commander Tarek Vel saw them coming. His tactical officers screamed warnings. His weapons crews tried to shoot them down. They were too slow. The first warhead detonated inside the fleet formation. In the vacuum of space, there was no sound. Just light. Terrible, beautiful light that burned brighter than any star. The second warhead hit 3 seconds later. The third, 5 seconds after that. The electromagnetic pulse, combined with Dr. Yoon's frequency disruptors now broadcasting from 1,000 human transmitters, tore through the Velith shields like paper. Ships that had been invincible became fragile. Ships that had been fragile became dust. 40% of the invasion fleet died in less than a minute. Commander Tarek Val stood on his damaged bridge, surrounded by fires and sparking consoles. His tactical officer was dead. His communications were destroyed. His beautiful fleet was falling apart around him. And then, impossibly, a human voice came through his speakers. "Attention, Velith Commander. This is Captain Park Ga of the United Earth Defense Force. We are coming aboard." Tarek Vel watched the human shuttle approach. It was a Velith vessel, captured somehow, piloted by creatures he had thought were primitives. His guards raised their weapons, but he waved them down. "Let them come," he said. "I want to see these humans up close." The shuttle docked. The airlock opened, and Captain Park Ga stepped onto his bridge. She looked terrible. Her arm was in a sling. Her face was bruised. She walked with a limp. Behind her came other humans. A soldier in Korean uniform. A man in a dark suit who never stopped smiling. Warriors from a dozen different nations, united in a way that should have been impossible. "You bombed yourselves," Tarek Vel said. His translators made the words flat and mechanical. "You used nuclear weapons on your own planet." "Yes," Ga said. "Your own people died. Millions of them." "Yes. Why?" "We would have conquered you either way. You could have surrendered. Saved countless lives." Ga stepped closer. She was small, barely reaching the alien commander's chest. But when she looked up at him, there was something in her eyes that made Tarek Vel step back. "Because we would rather die than live on our knees," she said. "Because we have been fighting each other for 10,000 years, and we have learned that the only thing worse than death is slavery. Because you came to our home, burned our cities, killed our children, and expected us to give up." She reached into her pocket and placed a small device on the command console. It was a beacon, broadcasting on every Velith frequency. "This contains our history," she said. "All of it. Every war we have ever fought. Every weapon we have ever built. Every terrible thing we have done to each other. Take it back to your dominion. Show them what you found here." Tarek Vel looked at the beacon. The data was already streaming, filling his screens with images and words in alien languages. He saw human soldiers charging into machine gun fire. He saw mushroom clouds over burned cities. He saw warriors from every age, fighting with stones and swords and guns and bombs. "You are monsters," he whispered. "Yes," Ga said. "We are. And now we know you are out here. Now we know that the universe is not empty. Now we have a reason to stop fighting each other." She leaned closer. Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Go home, Commander. Tell your Dominion what happened here. Tell them we were just getting warmed up. And tell them that if they ever come back, we will not stop at our own solar system. We will follow them. We will find them. And we will show them what humanity does to those who threaten our home." The surviving Velith ships began jumping to hyperspace. One by one they fled. The invasion that was supposed to conquer Earth in 2 days had lasted 6 hours. Commander Tarek Vel was the last to leave. Before his ship vanished into the stars, he looked back at the blue planet one more time. He would never forget what he saw there. He would never stop being afraid. On Earth, the survivors began to rebuild. The cities were gone. The old governments were shattered. Billions had died in a single day. But something new was rising from the ashes. In Bizen, old Sergeant Beek Sunho recovered in a hospital bed. His granddaughter Yunji sat beside him, wearing the uniform of the United Earth Defense Corps. She had enlisted that morning. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we build," he said. "Better than before. Stronger than before." In her laboratory, Dr. Yoon Hana was already studying captured Velith technology. Faster than light travel. Energy shields. Weapons that humanity had only dreamed of. Within a year, she would unlock the secrets of interstellar travel. Within 5 years, the first human colony ship would leave Earth. Agent Cha Minho disappeared into the shadows, building intelligence networks that spanned the planet. He was preparing for threats that had not yet arrived. He knew they would come. And Captain Park Ji-ae stood on the observation deck of the captured Velith shuttle. It was humanity's first starship now. They were already training crews, preparing for journeys that would take generations. She looked out at the stars. All her life, they had been distant lights, beautiful but unreachable. Now they were a road, a challenge, a promise. The invasion had lasted 6 hours. The human response had just begun. In the great archives of the Velith Dominion, a new entry was added. It was marked with the highest possible danger classification. It read simply, Species, Human, Homeworld, Earth, Sol System. Status, Existential Threat, Recommended Action, Absolute Avoidance. And at the bottom, added by a clerk who had seen the data from Commander Tarek Vel's final transmission, "They are coming. The Void have mercy on any who stand in their way."